Let's go to Congressman in waiting, current House of Delegates member Scott Taylor. He is the Republican nominee for Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. He is the overwhelming favorite to be elected to Congress in November, but you have to get through the election. Once he does that, he'll be the Republican congressman from the 2nd District, replacing the retiring Scott Ridgel. Scott, good to have you with us again, 2 days in a row.
Yeah, John, good morning again.
I had to get your take on the Comey speech yesterday and the fact that Hillary Clinton was not indicted, yet he did excoriate her, called her behavior extremely careless, not gross negligence. Scott Taylor, what did you make of the whole thing?
Well, I mean, I just thought it was incredible. I mean, I know that Director Comey has a good reputation, but I think that this is where we are today, right? It's such a high burden for a prosecution for a high level political actor, and I think that's wrong. And I think he clearly laid out the case publicly for gross negligence at a minimum. I think he laid it out yesterday. So it's baffling to me, and I think that's why people have lost trust in this government, and that's dangerous. I mean, you have Bill Clinton meeting with Loretta Lynch on her plane, then you have Hillary Clinton over a holiday weekend, perhaps the biggest holiday weekend in our nation, meeting with the FBI. Then she's aboard Air Force One. Do you know anybody that would be under federal investigation riding on Air Force One with the President of the United States?
No.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is.
So, but that being said, I think from a legal standpoint, it's baffling because I think that he made a huge mistake and not at least letting it go to a grand jury. I mean, these political appointees, Loretta Lynch right below her, even Director Comey, I mean, I think any grand jury would have indicted her. I really do. Look, I've had a top secret clearance. We have over 800,000 veterans in Virginia, many of whom have had secret clearances, top secret clearances. There's other people who are cleared. They know damn well that she broke the law. She absolutely broke the law at a minimum of gross negligence. So, from a political standpoint, I think she's got big problems with it because like you said, he was very harsh on her, of course, and this is just a repeated pattern, and I actually think it's an opportunity for Trump politically.
How?
Because it shows how careless, how reckless, and how poor her judgment is in some of the nation's top secrets. I mean, she was the top diplomat for the nation. And there was a WikiLeaks release yesterday, I think it was, of some of her emails.
Yes.
And I just clicked on a couple of them, like two of them. And one of them, as soon as you see the information, you know immediately that any reasonable person, as the director actually said, any reasonable person would understand that these should not be on unsecure servers. This is the top diplomat of our country. So when you couple that with Benghazi and you see when you put this person in a position of authority at the top levels, she's reckless, careless, and lacks judgment. I mean, I think it does. I think it presents a huge opportunity for Trump, depending on how he plays it.
Well, one of the other things that James Comey said yesterday that I found baffling, he said, well, I can't find intent. There's no intent to do harm or whatever he said. The intent of her setting up this homebrew server network, and this was not one server she had, right? She had multiple servers at different times that she was managing with this. Well, the reason she set the whole thing up was so they couldn't obtain the emails in the future from a public records request. That's why she set it up. So that's the intent.
And look at the intent afterwards as well, too, when she looked in the cameras multiple times and lied, saying, look, I never passed anything that was secret at the time. It was nothing secret. I only had one mobile device. When like I said, he laid out the case for her on national television for, at a minimum, gross negligence and perhaps covering up evidence. And that's why you're seeing Congressman Goodlatte wanting to question Comey, and I'm sure there's going to be a couple other investigations into his decision making. But he clearly laid the case out for Americans. So again, I think that it presents an opportunity for Trump. It's incredible that she's not indicted and that she's not in front of a grand jury of her peers who can then make the decision, not a political appointee. But that's the problem. That's why we have a lack of trust in Washington and in the country right now. And that's dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Well, Scott, you're right. I mean, that is the whole problem right now, which is bigger than any of the policies out there, in my judgment, is middle America thinking the system is rigged, which it is based on the evidence that we've seen recently. This is just one more, I think, blatant, in-your-face example.
He even said in his testimony yesterday that there's evidence that she broke the statute. I mean, he laid the case out. I mean, it's incredible.
It really was.
I had a text yesterday from a buddy of mine who's in the FBI, who I served with, and same thing. He was like, "This is BS."
Yeah, well, they had the case was laid out, and I was telling the story earlier that looking at it yesterday with the Fräulein, the first 6 minutes of it, she turned to me and said, "John, oh my goodness, you're 100% wrong. She's going to get indicted. There's no question she's going down today in about 5 minutes." And then the opposite happened. So you got to shake your head on that. But I think you're right, Scott Taylor. I think you're exactly right. I think what he should have said is, look, I'm going to turn this over to a grand jury, and I will let a jury of her peers, a grand jury, decide whether or not to indict. And I think had he done that, everybody would have said, okay, well, that's the way the system is supposed to work, right?
Yeah, then you wouldn't have on both sides, right? Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you believe her or you don't believe her, there's clearly a systematic failure there. In this case, particular, with specifically with wrongdoings, like I said, with Bill Clinton meeting with Loretta Lynch, with the FBI questioning her on a 4th of July weekend, with the president going on the plane with her. It's insane. So I think if I was Director Comey personally, again, whether you're for or against her, believe her or don't believe her, well, let it go to the jury of her peers. Right? Let them decide.
Well, especially
and let them decide who are not influenced by the political process necessarily.
Right.
They're not political appointees. She's not too big to indict or not. So yeah, I think it should go to them.
Because you're not
I'd like to see transparency on the Saturday questions.
Well,
let's see the
exactly.
transcripts of the questions and the answers on Saturday with the FBI, where everybody was at 4th of July weekend.
Well, even that Saturday thing seemed very contrived. 3.5 hours at the FBI office the weekend before a holiday. I was saying earlier that if you take Maureen and Bob McDonald combined, they were interviewed by the FBI a total of 27 hours. 27, overtaking $175,000. And so, big deal, okay? 27 hours. Clinton got 3.5 hours. I mean, the whole thing is, you just look at it and you just know that rules are for the other guy. Therefore, working schmucks like me and Michael that have to come in every day and do what we have to do in order to make ends meet. And if you're part of the elite cabal, you basically can do anything you want and you get off, especially if your name happens to be Clinton, right? There's no question.
In the words of Director Comey, any reasonable citizen would look at this and say, this is wrong. This is not the treatment that I would get as an American.
Right. Absolutely. So you're right. He should have went to a grand jury. That was the right thing to do. I mean, we have a system. And I really felt yesterday like this is a watershed mark in America, because I looked at that thing yesterday and I no longer believe, frankly, Scott, in the sanctity of my government. I just don't believe them. I don't believe anything that they say. And I've never been this way. I mean, I'm 58. I just don't believe anything they say. And,
well, with all due respect to Comey, his out seemed to be, after he laid out a case against her, his out seemed to be, well, we look back through the case law and there was no other prosecution for this type of thing, and I think there was one other case in like '86 or something like that. But so what? So that's for the grand jury and the prosecutors to decide.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But look, listen, when you look at it from their pressure standpoint, right, which I don't care about, but it's such a high profile thing. If you bring charges against a political actor like that, then you're going to have repercussions yourself if it's wrong or not. But who cares? That's the way. Do your job. Do your job.
If you don't
want to be the director,
that's exactly it. If you don't want to face the heat, then don't take the job. Right? It would have been as simple as that. Just decline it or resign, or just say, I'm going to recommend indicting her, and you know what? I'm going to resign, and we'll let somebody else handle it. I mean, there were a million things that he could have said yesterday, and I thought he took the out. because he didn't want to feel the heat. I don't know what his motivations were, but I thought after laying out that strong of a case, he should have turned it over to a grand jury, because part of this is not whether or not Clinton is found guilty or who's the nominee. I think the bigger picture is you've got to get Americans back believing that their government is telling the truth. I mean, the fact that
there's trust in government, that there's justice. Look, if I could say this not from a, as much as I can and be as objective as I understand that I'm a political actor, but
go ahead.
Just if I just put my military hat on for a second, like I said, there's 800,000 of us out there in Virginia. There's a lot of your listeners are veterans. Anyone who's handled classified information, top secret, even just classified, they know that there was wrongdoings here. They know that they would be
exactly. Hey, Scott, I'm out of time. I want to thank Scott Taylor for being with us.